All right, well, we know that Crystal Palace can be a thorn in many a side, but they were not today for Manchester City. Here's a look at the match stats, and undoubtedly, we will talk about what this could mean for the title race. If there still is one, guys, let's have a look at the Premier League standings now. City now still behind Arsenal, but this time just by 2 points. All right, let's bring in Jan Aga Fjørtoft for this one. Jan, Manchester City making a couple of rotations. As I said, Crystal Palace, I mean, they probably have their eyes on their European final to think about, but City won this one without any trouble, really.
And imagine when Crystal Palace is playing Arsenal and they make a rotation for their final. What do you think Manchester City will say then for the last game at Arsenal? So that's quite interesting. I wasn't surprised based on what Pep Guardiola has done before, but still, when you see the likes of Haaland or Cherki and everybody sitting on a bench, you're thinking, wow, do they dare to do this? But I mean, Pep Guardiola has done this for ages, and he's done the same thing again, and it paid out today. 3-0. Wow, it's the end of the season. It's unbelievable. I wish I get my Norwegian to lift the trophy anyway, so I don't care which team it will be. But it's great. I would like to see the battle all the way to the end, and it seems that we get that.
Seems like we could get that. CV, you were keeping a close eye on this one. What did you think of City?
Well, it's not a surprise that they beat Crystal Palace by 3. You know, Crystal Palace have been on the beach for a long time. They were safe a long time ago.
Yeah.
They're concentrating on Europe. And in a lot of ways, it's actually really sad that the last game of the season that'll probably be the one that really counts. Crystal Palace are going to have half a team out. And at the end of the day, nobody can complain about that.
Yeah.
Because every team, pretty much every team in the Premier League, at some stage has been rotating and playing half a team. So Manchester City can't really say too much about it. Nobody can. That's what happens these days. And unfortunately for the Premier League, on the last day of the season, it's kind of going to be ruined a little bit because it's going to be Palace reserves against Arsenal.
Alec, just looking at the remaining schedules, what are you saying?
It's the feeling that I shared with Stevie while we were watching the game. Arsenal couldn't possibly blow this.
This would be the biggest bottle job, wouldn't it?
They couldn't possibly, could they? It just, I mean, you look at that schedule and you say, all right, well, if you were to pick 2 teams to play against, if you were Arsenal this late in the season, you would say, well, Burnley, sure, why not? Give me that. And then half a team of Crystal Palace, or a quarter of a team of Crystal Palace, or whatever is left of Crystal Palace. and it feels like it's all so neatly wrapped up for Arsenal that, again, it's on them.
Yeah.
The only thing that I would say is that if you notice, the goal differential has now gone in the direction of Manchester City, has tipped over towards Manchester City. Does that apply a little bit of pressure on Arsenal? Because if indeed somehow they drop points, then it really is in the hands of Manchester City. Maybe. I just don't see the scenario, or it's hard to picture a scenario by which Arsenal are not able to get through these last 2 games, unless that pressure that we keep talking about is far too much for them and this team falls apart. That's the only way that I think this gets away from Arsenal.
Jan?
I would like to go back in the German Bundesliga. I just dropped out of my head now which year it was. But remember when Bayer Leverkusen had to go to Unterhaching. And they only had to beat Unterhaching in the last game of the season. And Unterhaching was like a part of Munich. It was a small suburb of, not even a suburb, it was a village close to Bayern Munich. And they lost. They lost. And after the game, the Unterhaching players went with bus to Bayern Munich, who won their game, and celebrating the championship with them. So it's still possible, Al. It's still possible because it's football. It's still possible. They would probably get those goals against Burnley, probably. But then they're going to play Crystal Palace second team. We've seen it before. We can see it again. But of course, it's advantage Arsenal. It's advantage that tight decision in the last game. It's against West Ham. It is also advantage Arsenal because, and that's important, because Manchester City played at Everton, totally dominated the first half, and then managed to concede 3 goals in 13 minutes and just somehow managed to get a point there. So I think that with the end of a season, over a season, the best team win, and it may be Arsenal, but not yet, Al.
Can Jan say Unterhaching again?
Actually, I want to know if Stevie can say it. Stevie, can you pronounce
I
Unterhaching?
can say it, Unterhaching.
Oh, hey, all right.
Bundesliga, Stevie.
All right. Bringing it.
We Scots have got a, you know.
You do have that. You do have that. You know who looked like he had it back today too? Phil Foden. He looked like he had a really good game today, Stevie.
Do you know he had to have a good game today? Because that'll stick in the mind of Thomas Tuchel or whoever was at that game to watch him. Because Tuchel will be watching this guy.
Yeah.
He's got so much talent, it's frightening. And for him not to be at the World Cup seems crazy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, England have got 3-4 players that could fill that spot. So it was huge for him to actually show himself today. And if Thomas Tuchel thinks the second one's an assist as well, even better for Foden.
Yeah, and he did himself a world of good today.
Yeah, he did, but still, it's worrying time for the English football team because there is a lot of key players out of form. Phil Foden has been known, for some reason, maybe a reason we don't know, that he's not have a good season. There's Bellingham, Saka hasn't had a great season, getting a bit into form. But it's not a go when Phil Foden, we know his talent. He's been one of the most talented players England have had the last 3-4 years. But for England now, it's 30 days till the World Cup. It's not enough to have one good game against Crystal Palace and think you're going to win the World Cup. But it's good for the kid. He had some great actions today. And that assist he had there, I mean, that was brilliant. That will be in all kind of highlights of this season because that was a brilliant assist.
Stevie, if you were Thomas Tuchel, you are the manager of this panel. And it comes down to you having to pick between Phil Foden, who, as both of you have mentioned, hasn't been all that great, but seems to be having a little bit of a late revival, and Cole Palmer, who, talk about somebody who has had an underwhelming season and hasn't really delivered on what we thought would be a great season for him. Which one would you take? Similar profile players. Who do you take to the World Cup?
Well, you know, I think if there's one thing that maybe was in Phil Foden's favour is the fact that he's not had a long, tough season, has he? I mean, we're going to go to a World Cup at the end of the season where everybody's going to complain about having had a long domestic season, regardless of what country you've been in, and not feeling fresh and sharp. So maybe that goes in Phil Foden's favour. But it's actually not that... It's not that easy an answer.
Nope.
Because neither of them have convinced anybody that they're anywhere close to being the players that we know they can or should be. So one of them's going to go.
Who's your pick?
Well, you're the manager.
I think right now I would maybe take Foden over Palmer.
All right.
You're the manager.
Yep.
You're the boss.
You're the manager.
You're the
boss.
gaffer.
You make the tough calls. Well, obviously, speaking of managers, Jan, Pep Guardiola, just judging by his 11 and the rotation, I'm pretty sure it had a lot to do with the fact that City have a final to play this weekend in the FA Cup final. If City do go on and beat Chelsea and win the FA Cup final, but they fall short in the title race and Arsenal win the Premier League, how do we judge their season?
So it's interesting. There's so many things that we need to judge on Manchester City at the moment. I'm at City or seeing their games more or less every week. I try to pick Pep's brain if he's going to stay or will he won't stay. I have no clue. What we'll do with Manchester City, I mean, there is a key game in Bournemouth and blah, blah, blah. We know all about that. I think that when you see the first part of the season, Arsenal were the clear better team. But I've been impressed what Pep has managed to get him back as close as he has with Arsenal. And we can say, although there have been some funny recruitments at Manchester City, they haven't hit the target by all of the recruitments, but somehow Pep has now managed to kind of get the team a bit younger, get him going. You have a Doku, you have a Semenyo, although he had a period of time where he wasn't that good and so on. Remember, he played more or less all the time without Rodri. He's been in there some games. Erling Haaland is still scoring his goals. Phil Foden hasn't been even there. Gvardiol, Diaz. So I think that is a decent season by Manchester City. And if they should end up now getting that trophy as well, I think they will consider themselves as a quite good season and think that they started a bit too late to get the Premier League, and they will be annoyed. They will be annoyed with some of the results, especially that Everton, when they were so close and they were in advantage. And we'll see how vulnerable that result will be for them.
If somebody had said previous Christmas, you know, when City fell off the planet, somebody had said the following season you're going to win the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, you're going to push the winners and be a point behind them at the end of the season, I think everybody would go, really? How's that going to happen? So if you look at it from that point of view, it's actually been a really good season.
But City just a victim of their own success in this one, because we know okay good or just 2 domestic trophies that aren't the title or the Champions League isn't really City.
Yeah, right. And Stevie, when last Christmas or the Christmas before that, let me just go to that this past Christmas, City were not even in the competition with Arsenal at that point. It felt like Arsenal were going to run away with this, and now Manchester City does get help from Arsenal because they started collapsing, but then give credit to Manchester City in finding somehow, with all their issues, with all their concerns that they have defensively, how exposed they are in transition, how exposed they are at times in the midfield, how their possession is not nearly as clean as it has been in years past, and yet here they are with a chance. In my estimation, not a great chance, but with a chance nonetheless. So give them credit, because it felt like they were not even in the competition to begin with, certainly at the turn of the new year, and they've made it into a race. However, to your point, Alexis, the standard for Manchester City is much higher than that. And I don't think they have met that standard just yet. They may be on their way to getting back there, but we're not quite there.